What's up everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, I will cover changing the rear brake pads in a 2014 through 2020 Chevy Impala. I will be changing the rear left, so chalk the opposite wheel, which will be the front right. First, break loose the lug nuts while it's still sitting on the ground. Next, jack up the vehicle and support it with a jack stand. Never support it with just the floor jack. Then, remove the lug nuts and remove the wheel. We will need to remove the two caliper bolts, one at the top of the caliper and one at the bottom of the caliper. Use a 13mm socket to break the two bolts loose, then remove them, and set them aside for later. Now the caliper is ready to remove. You may need a pry bar or a screwdriver to help pry it out of place, and set it aside safely and securely. Next, remove the existing brake pads. There is one on the outside and one on the inside, and they will slip out from the sides. I also recommend replacing the brake pad clips to ensure that the pads slide freely. They may come with your brake pads, or you can buy them in a separate hardware kit. Just pop out the old clips to remove them. If you don't want to buy new ones, you can clean the existing ones with a wire brush. Clean up the mounting surfaces with a scraper, a wire brush, or whatever's needed so the new clips will fully seat. And pop in the clips, one on the bottom and one on the top. And here they are, fully seated with no gaps. Next up is re-greasing the caliper bolt guide pins. They are supposed to freely move left and right. Remove the caliper bolt guide pin from the caliper bracket. Wipe off the existing grease and apply new silicone grease. If necessary, you can also replace the rubber boot or the pin if they are worn or damaged. Then reinstall the pin and make sure the lip on the rubber boot seats on the shoulder of the guide pin and the caliper bracket to seal it, and the bolts will float freely in the caliper bracket. And repeat the process for the other bolt. Clean it, apply new silicone grease, and reinstall it. Next, install the new brake pads by sliding the ears into the brake pad clips. Make sure the pads are facing the rotor. Do not put them in backwards. Sometimes it can be tricky to get the ears into the slots. You may need to push on the clips a little to get the pads in. Then push the pads up against the rotor. And the pad with the wear sensors goes on the inside, and the pad without the wear sensors goes on the outside. And here's a close-up of the pads installed, with the ears and the clips. With the new pads installed, we've added additional thickness to the pad and rotor stack-up. The caliper will no longer fit over it. The piston needs to be pushed in to make room for the new pads. The piston needs to be rotated, and it has two recesses, one here and one here. This is the kit I have, and it accommodates a variety of vehicles. This is our adapter. The two pins seat in the recesses on the caliper piston, and these two holes are for the tool. This one is for left-hand rotation, and this one is for right-hand rotation, which is the one we need for this vehicle. The adapter mates on the end, and rotates when the handle is rotated. And this last piece holds it in the caliper. When pushing the pistons in, the brake fluid will rise in the reservoir. You can remove the cap to relieve the pressure. So, whatever disc brake piston caliper tool you choose to use, rotate the piston back into the caliper. And now there's enough room to install the caliper back over the thicker brake pads. Next, apply a thin layer of grease to the surfaces that will be in contact with the back of the brake pads. And set the caliper back in position on the brake pads. You may need to push the guide pins in a little for it to drop down and sit all the way in position. Then, reinstall the two caliper pin bolts to secure it in place. Tighten them to 20 foot-pounds, then rotate an additional 45 degrees. Then reinstall the wheel and get the lug nuts started. Then, lower the vehicle until the tire just touches the ground to prevent it from rotating, and tighten the lug nuts in a star pattern to 110 foot-pounds. Then, finish lowering the vehicle. If you remove the brake fluid cap, reinstall it. And don't forget to remove the wheel chocks. Then, before you drive anywhere, start the vehicle, and press the brake several times to push the pistons and the calipers back out to the operating position. Otherwise, if you go driving right away, your foot will go to the floor, and you will not stop when you press the brakes. Then do a controlled test stop to make sure everything is working properly. This is good to go. And that wraps this up. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.